Welcome to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. I'm your mildly phlegmy host,
Ew.
Robert Perry Cruz.
That's one of my least favorite words.
Sorry. Congested? Hoarse?
Horse is okay, I guess.
Okay, horse is okay. I'm your mildly hoarse host. Oh, there's alliteration there too. It's even better. Robert Perry Cruz. And with me as always is my one of my fabulous co-hosts.
I'm your pretty filly, Diana.
Oh boy. Well, this is not a podcast about horses or like a Mr. Ed rewatch podcast. Is there one of those? Is anyone rewatching Mr. Ed?
No, I don't know that Mr. Ed is still in the common consciousness.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
It stars the guy who played Scrooge McDuck on the original DuckTales. Alan Young.
Well,
That's
there's
it.
a fact.
There's a fact. This isn't a podcast about that, nor is it a podcast about actor
facts?
trivia.
Actually, it is.
No, well, a little bit. This is a podcast about behavior analysis and behavior analytic research, where every week we pick a topic and discuss it at length, except for at weeks like this, which are our previews of what's to come in the month. And this is a preview of what's coming up in March 2024. If you are listening to this episode on our Patreon feed, or you're a patron of ours, we say thank you, thank you. And for that, you get this a week ahead of time. So you will get this in the end of February to get ready for March. And if you're listening on the free feed, you are getting this at the beginning of the month to see what's coming up in the next few months. You have a little less time to prepare, but I think you're going to be okay either way. So usually we have our third co-host, Jackie McDonald, but a lot has been going on this past month related to various illnesses. So, for example, my voice sounds terrible. It has sounded terrible for about a week. I don't get sick the way I used to, I think pre-pandemic, where I'd get sick and then sort of be sick for a while and then be well. I sort of get the precursors to illness where like I get a tickle in my throat, like, uh-oh, I'm going to be sick tomorrow. And then no, I just lose my voice for like 2 weeks, which I think I hate more than just being sick for a day or two and then feeling better, because I have to go through all the, oh, are you feeling okay? Oh, are you sick? Oh, how long have you been sick? And I'm like, I'm fine. I've been fine.
And everyone gives you like plague face.
Yeah, it's different. Like it used to be like people, you go
Don't
cough in
come
someone's
close.
face and they just be like, that's how capitalism works in America. Got to keep coming to work. And now I think people are looking at me like, that guy is going to kill us all. I wish he would leave. And I'm like, no, my voice just sounds terrible. Otherwise, I am fine. So I sound awful. It has messed up our recording. We would have tried to power through. However, we recently had, Diana, you've been struggling with some migraines in the past few days. Oh, you don't want to talk about that? No? Okay.
I guess. Sure. Yeah.
Just goes with the theme of how the month has been ending, hopefully will not be starting. And then Jackie is not here because there is a stomach bug going through her house.
Yeah, no one's doing great.
So
Winter's rough.
I'm doing the best, but I probably sound the worst. If everyone else was here, they'd sound great, but they're dealing with too many illnesses or helping other people with their illnesses. So here I am still talking. Anyway, let's get into what we're doing this month, and you will just have to suffer through this raspy sound I've got going here. Donna, what's coming up in March for ABA Inside Track, where hopefully we're all at tip-top shape? Some of these we recorded before we all got sick, so
that's true.
They will sound better.
Yes, if you're listening to February's episodes, those are recorded back before all of this, and many other things also have occurred.
Maybe April before you say,
of ABA.
This sounds terrible.
Yeah, who knows? So even though March, sometimes there are 4 episodes that come out in March, but that's not the case this March. The way that it timed out, I feel like March is often just like a long month. I don't know exactly. But anyway, there will be 3 episodes that will emerge during the hopeful springtime that we're hoping that March will bring. And one of them actually was recorded last year because it's the what is that called? The worldwide release of our book club. And so if you were listening to that, it was recorded a year ago. But if you were a patron, you could have listened to it on repeat this entire past year. But if you weren't, then it's now coming to your feed. And so that was a 2-hour recording that we did with all 3 of us, and also, of course, book club guy, Alan Haberman. And we talked about the book Between Now and Dreams, which is the subtitle for the rest of the title, Responsible and Responsive Parenting and Autism. This is a book written by Dr. Shala Alayi Rosales and Peggy Henkel Wolf. And we had a great time discussing this. Can you remember in the Wayback Machine?
I do. We
Yeah.
talked to the authors as well. Not in that episode, but it's a different bonus episode.
Dr. Alai Rosales. Yes, we certainly did. And we really liked this book. We liked the look of the book. It's like a pocket size book, and it has lots of little quotes in it, as I recall, right? And it was an enjoyable read. So everyone should check that episode out. That's the first episode coming out in the month. Then we will have an episode related to social validity. So we already did a social validity episode back in the day, but this one, we're bringing it back around because it is such an important and timely topic. And I brought this one to the table. I want to talk about ways in which we assess social validity. And there are some heavy hitting articles that will be accompanying this conversation. They include Social Validity Assessments is Current Practice, State of the Art. That's by Schwartz and Baer. It was actually published in JABA in 1991, but gosh, is it relevant today? So get ready, buckle up. We will also be discussing assessment of social validity trends in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis. That was published by Ferguson et al. In the European Journal of Behavior Analysis 2018. Social Validity of Evidence-Based Practices and Emerging Interventions in Autism by Callahan, Hughes, Mehta, Toussaint, Nichols, Ma, Kutlu, and Wang. That was in Focus on Autism and Other Developmental Disabilities, year 2017. And finally, Thematic and Textual Analysis Methods for Developing Social Validity Questionnaires in Applied Behavior Analysis by Anderson, Taylor, and Viruez Ortega, published in Must Be Behavioral Interventions, because it's down at the bottom of the page, 2022.
Great.
Exciting stuff. I feel like I got through it. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. And then for our last episode in the month of March, we were very excited and honored to be joined by Dr. Malika Pritchett, in which we discuss social justice research practices. So she provided us with several awesome articles to review. They include Social Justice is the Spirit and Aim of an Applied Science of Human Behavior, Moving from Colonial to Participatory Research Practices. Participatory is one of my favorite words to say. That was written by Pritchett, Alai Rosales. Oh, look at that. Circle back. Red Cruz and Sihon, published in Behavior Analysis and Practice 2022. Also, just like another recent episode with Dr. Syed, we were also treated to a book chapter for this episode too, and that was titled From Fuller to Fawcett, A Human Rights History of Research Ethics in Behavior Analysis. Again, by Pritchett, Alai Rosales, Sihon, and Ray Cruz. And the book that is published in is Research Ethics in Behavior Analysis, that just came out 2023. And finally, Critical Race Theory in Education, How Banning Its Tenets Undermines Our Best Hope for Equity in Education, by Kerwer and Pritchett. That was in Behavior and Social Issues 2023.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
That's the plan.
A lot of big topics about big themes and big ideas.
Yeah.
Big change. So
yeah,
very excited to have those conversations. Got us all very ready for anything, ready for the big switches in life. All right. Well, now that we know what's coming out in March, let's move on to the next section of our preview episode, Errata, where we discuss everything else that might be going on. So, first up, I think we only have a couple points to go over.
Yeah.
First up, if you are interested and you have either listened to our book clubs or are going to be looking forward to our Between Now and Dreams book club releasing to the wide audience, well, guess what? We're going to be getting ready for our spring book club very shortly. We do one of these every season because books take a long time to read and process and analyze and then record and discuss. So we don't do them as often as our regular episodes. And we have some choices for our spring book club. So
do you want me to do those?
Well, in a moment I do. Let me get the preamble out of the way. So certainly with our book clubs, if you are listening, again, if you're listening on the Patreon feed, you will be getting your link to vote next week. So that'll be starting on Monday, and you'll have till Friday night to vote on your favorite of 3 choices. If you're getting this in the free feed, well, you can't vote unless you're a patron. So you probably want to head on over to patreon.com/ABA Inside Track and subscribe at any level. But if you want to listen to the full book club right when it releases in the springtime, so about in April, that would be at the $10 level. If you just want to vote and then maybe get ready for our spring listener choice episode, that'll be sometime in May. Hey, that's at the $5 level. If you just want to say thanks and get some little discounts, some little bonuses, and just vote, that's at the $3 tier. So whichever tier is right for you, or if you just say, I don't care what it is, I can't wait till next year when I listen to it, that's fine too. However it works for you, but you've only got a few days, so you got to head over there quick if you want to make your voice heard. And our choices, because last season, so our winter book club, some of you may have heard the preview or heard the full episode, we talked about acceptance and commitment therapy for behavior analysts. And it was a very dense read. We had a lot of opinions and a lot of thoughts. Some things were exciting, some things were frustrating, some things were confusing, but it was a lot. And Diana said, I'm mad as hell and I don't want to, I'm not going to take it anymore. She went and screamed out the window. Passersby were not sure what she was talking about, but we knew. And we said,
only Rob knew what that reference. I know the reference.
Okay.
If Jackie were here, she'd say she doesn't know the reference.
I've never seen that. I don't know that reference.
Yeah.
And Diana said she would not come out of her trailer until we put a rider on our spring book club, which is she got to pick the books. And she wanted them to be books that were more about quick reads, getting it into your practice, whatever you learned, putting it right into play. And
I wanted books that paired well with only In-N-Out cheeseburgers and green M&Ms, because that's the other things.
So the books had to be
that people
ready to go,
over.
Ready to read, and then ready to put into practice was the theme.
Let me explain my joke further.
No, yes.
Okay. Well, I also wanted to pick some that I think, people often ask us about. Not that we can answer clinically related questions, right? But a lot of people write in to say...
Ethically, we can't.
We absolutely cannot, and we do not. So if you write in with a clinical question, we just, send it right back to you and say thanks for listening. But often people ask us about clinically related topics. So I wanted to pick some books that I thought would be useful to folks in that they may want to just touch base again with some of the literature that's out there that's not articles, but is highly informative. And also could be potentially good references for parents. So either things that you then build a parent training series from, or books that you potentially even recommend for parents as well. And that's how we landed on these 3 topics. Now, these books may be ready to take off the line and apply in that way, or they may require us to do some additional critical analysis and thinking regarding the recommendations in the book. So don't feel as though we're just going to take every piece in here, right? Our field is continually evolving with respect to these particular topics. So you, I think, would be in for a good listen either way. You ready to hear what they are?
I'd love to hear what they are.
Oh, okay. Great. So I actually have to take my glasses off to see this because that's never a good sign. Great. So we thought that 3 topics that often come up that people want to hear more about include... The book I picked is activity schedules, but generally like leisure skills, toilet training, and sleep. I think that these come up quite a good bit. So we have 3 books written by behavior analysts that are our recommendations on these 3 topics that everybody can vote on. They include activity schedules for children with autism, teaching independent behavior. And that was part of the Topics in Autism series written by McClanahan and Krantz, which are 2 of the OGs in activity schedules. You may recognize their names.
I do.
Next up is the classic Toilet Training in Less Than a Day by Azrin and Fox. It's still out there, and a lot of people still reference it. So I would love to dig into that one and kind of look at some of the recommendations and practice there. And finally, Good Night, Sweet Dreams, I Love You. Now get into bed and go to sleep. And that is by Dr. Pat Fryman. I don't know if a lot of people know this book exists, but it is a good short read and has some recommendations in there that I think people might find useful. So those are my 3 recommendations for the Spring Book Club.
Spring Book Club. All right.
All right.
So if you're hearing this, it's either almost time to vote or almost time to be voted because we're going to close the polls, and then we'll be able to, you'll know what it is because it'll, be posted on our Patreon site. I think everyone can see the poll results, and then you'll be able to listen to a preview or the full episode, dependent on where you subscribe to us. So very exciting. I like books. We said exciting like 700 times. And I said to myself, stop saying exciting, but it's very hard because it's an exciting word. Anywho, I can't tell. Dinah made a face. I couldn't tell if it was she's also tired of exciting or not as interested.
I hadn't noticed. So.
Okay. All right. Well, now
I'm immune to it, I guess.
I hung a lantern on it so everyone knows. All right. And now we're going to share. We usually do this. We sometimes get emails or posts online. I thought we'd do some posts online. I don't always check our social media feed. Sometimes I'll get, links or posts, where I mentioned or ABA Inside Track is mentioned. And I check them out sometimes. But social media is more Diana and Jackie kind of like to do it. I feel like I'm so far outside of what is the norm of social media that I feel like I would just come in and sound very uncool. And so I have decided it's not for me anymore. Oh, well, but it is always nice to hear people's experiences on social media. And we found some that we thought would be good to share. One was actually a mention. So I got like a little thing in my email. Like that's the hardest thing to remember, in my email from LinkedIn of all places, the coolest of social media sites. And it was from Alyssa, who's a BCBA out in Tennessee. And she had mentioned some work that she'd been doing, some professional development work she'd been doing for herself. And I just sort of wanted to call out how great that is to see BCBAs, fellow BCBAs sort of really taking their professional development seriously. That's really where this podcast came from, is that idea of continually improving and finding ways to do that in a structure where it's something that just becomes part of your habit, part of your daily routines, because just saying, I'm going to make a change can be very hard to do, given that not everyone who is paying you or hiring you or working with you is going to be in support of the change you're most interested in. And Alyssa had mentioned that she is focusing on, that she's been doing this for many years now, but she picks a focus word and a supervisory skill. And the ones from 2023 were collaboration and critical thinking. And she's been very excited to say, I think she's been practicing the feed forward approach and checking in with the folks that she works with and the RBTs that she supervises to see how she's been doing in these areas. And she's been, very proud at her growth there. And then she mentioned a few resources that she has been using to continue this growth trajectory. One of them, of course, being our friend Matt Scoria's podcast, Behavioral Observations. And then she mentions a few episodes of Matt's that I'll throw out here. Certainly episode, looks like 8, From Clinician to Leader, Effective Supervisory Behaviors, which was episode 90, and episode 29, where talking about best practices for supervision. And then also mentioned another little podcast you may have heard about, ABA Inside Track, specifically looking at our episode on supervision book club for crucial conversations, as well as an older one, episode 142, supervision, which I do not remember exactly which articles we talked about in supervision, but they were about supervision. I know that much.
They were definitely about supervision. And then she's talking about episode 216, but just note that that's actually a two-parter. So episodes 216 and 217 are both the Crucial Conversations book club, just broken down into 2 independent episodes. That was before we just started releasing them as the 2-hour block. Mm-hmm. So you could also head over to episode 1007 and it's the same content.
Yeah. So, and then she mentions a number of other resources like the Do Better Pod, some leadership podcasts. It doesn't list who they are. And then some articles like Taking Full Responsibility, the ethics of supervision and behavior analytic practice. And then towards a competency-based, ethical, and socially valid approach to the supervision of applied behavior analytic trainees, which I believe we've talked about both of those articles on the show. Some of those titles start to blend together over the years. So
we have covered a lot of supervision articles.
We have.
Let me tell you.
Have we covered them all is the question.
Well, no, new ones keep coming out, but we are pretty much up to speed with all of the past ones.
Yes. So Alyssa, congrats.
Thank you, Alyssa.
And thank you for shouting us out. Thanks for using us as a resource in your own journey. We really appreciate hearing about that. And then we had one more kind of staying on the same boat of social media, was on our Patreon page itself. Sometimes people will leave comments. So I try to write back to everyone who leaves a comment. There it's a little easier because I get more notifications than some of the other social media platforms. Diana, I know, will try to write back to a lot of folks on, say, like Facebook or some of the other some of the other places. But we had
this newfangled place called Facebook.
I don't know. I feel like social media too. So many of the sites have become like poisoned and crappy, and no one wants to go there anymore. And then there's new ones cropping up. It just seems like the old west of social media again. I don't know. But
I don't know, man.
But anyway, patron Melissa had posted in our episode on functional behavior assessments in schools, episode 208. And wrote down, "Thank you for the episode. I just started working in the public school. I've been doing FBAs for a few months and really appreciate all this information." And then asked the question, with regard to classroom student responding, choral responding, etc., are there resources I can use to help teachers increase that skill across different grades? And asked about sort of the data sheet that was mentioned in some of our in that episode, which I think I gave her the right one. So I wrote to her separately, but I thought it would be important for anyone else who either works in public schools or is thinking about doing FBAs in public schools, maybe as an outside consultant. I was very proud of that episode. I spent a lot of time and a lot of thought. Sometimes those things kind of come fully formed. Sometimes it's one of those long gestating ideas. And I think that came out at a really good time in terms of needs of a lot of these CBAs.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
And a couple of resources that I mentioned to Melissa. So certainly you've heard his partner, Dr. Joey Staubitz, on the show, but Dr. John Staubitz, who is down at Triad Vanderbilt, and I have had a lot of chances to talk about Baseline Classroom. He's introduced me to some of the folks who wrote the Baseline Classroom Conditions article, Kessner et al. And I'm just going to say everyone's name. I have it open right here. We've got Kessner and Peterson, Eldridge and Peterson from 2019. Behavior Analysis and Practice is the article I'm referring to, which I absolutely love and is one of the few articles I have mentioned in meetings with other public school administrators where they get so excited, which rarely happens when I mention behavior analytic research in a meeting. I don't see a lot of excitement, but this topic seems to really be what everyone is looking for these days. But John Staubitz down at Triad at Vanderbilt has been putting together with a lot of his colleagues kind of a website, which is a bunch of resources for teachers looking at topics like choral responding, classroom management systems. A lot of it pulls from some of the work on precision teaching, like, the book on precision teaching as well, but it had a lot of great links. And I cannot remember, because he was sharing it with me because we've been talking about some ideas for classroom work. So he was sharing some of those resources with me. I believe you can access them from outside of Tennessee. The goal is for Tennessee public educators to use these resources. You may or may not be able to, but you can certainly go check it out. And there's some links there for resources as well. And that's vkclearning.org. And you can go to that website. I'm not sure if you can register from outside the state. It's been a while since John had shared that with me. But worst case scenario, you'll see some links to say, I heard about this, and I really want to check out these resources because I found it to just be like a clearinghouse of great teaching practices. And then I was able to use some of them in some of the professional development I do in my day job. And then the other place that I would say to get some resources, either before or as part of your FBA, if you're thinking about sort of a global FBA as a multi-step process, looking at that original Baseline Classroom Conditions article, which we talked about on the show, talked about specifically in that episode 208. So there's a link there. Wherever you find the podcast, you'll find a link to the article. And if you go to the site itself, you can find the electronic supplementary materials, including definitions, the data sheet they used for Baseline Classroom Conditions. I believe they made some updates to it in talking to some of the authors. I don't know where the updated version is available, but it'll at least give you a sense of where to start. And I would say give it a try, because if you're new to FBAs in public school, you really want to practice using something before you start saying, this is going to be a part of my assessment, because it is a little scary for teachers. I've definitely had teachers say they're excited and they want to use it themselves. They've asked for more training around it. But I've also had a number of teachers who just, when they hear the topics, they say, I think I do that, and they don't want to talk about it anymore, which, as much as I might then be frustrated or saying, I don't think you're using best practice, referring back to crucial conversations, when somebody is trying to sort of pull away from a topic, it usually shows that there's not a level of safety, meaning you've got work to do in terms of building your rapport with that teacher and in making a case as to why some of these skills may be worth looking at more critically. But again, a lot of teachers do have backgrounds where when they're told to do something different, it's just one more thing that they're asked to do. And then everyone forgets about it a couple months later. And so if they put a lot of work into it, it just means they haven't done the rest of their job, and then they get in trouble for that. There's a very complex learning history in our public schools. I think I've opined about how unfair and not the way we want them to be they have become and always kind of been to some extent. But anyway, that would be the place to look. And certainly if you want to, I've made some modifications to the baseline classroom conditions datasheet I use myself. So you can feel free to email us at the website if you'd like to see a copy of that. I don't think it's necessarily better than Kestner and colleagues, but it did cover a couple issues that in talking to other professionals, at least in our Massachusetts school district that I work, were interested in being able to capture as a part of the overall process of sort of doing these quick check-ins at what's working in the classroom, what procedures are in place that should minimize problem behavior and increase learning. So anyway, thank you so much for commenting. And I'm glad you found that stuff helpful, Melissa. And I hope other people find it helpful as well. Woo! Fun comments from social media. But anyway, as an old person who doesn't use social media, it's time for me to go to bed. I guess we should wrap up this episode. A lot of great things coming out in the next month. I was going to say few months too, because we have book club as well. So don't forget to check for book club polls. Otherwise, you can feel free to look forward to any of these episodes we have coming out. We're very excited about them. We've recorded some, but not all of them. And we hope you enjoy them as well. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for listening to our preview. We'll be back next week with the first of our March 2024 episodes. But until then, keep responding. Bye.
Bye.